Hey guys, what's going on today?
Busy times. We're
away.
Flames get a win. 2 goals for Nazem Kadri.
Oh,
Back White Cloud plays 24-45. Looks good.
yeah.
It's everything's coming up Conroy over here.
What does your buddy Commodore say? Pack your whatever.
Pack your shit. That's right.
Pack your shirts. You gotta use your shirts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe that's what's going to transpire. And I mean, it feels like we've been talking about this
I know.
forever. And we're going to have to talk about it probably for another 4 or 5 days because I still, as much as Kadri is an interesting piece and a piece that teams could see fitting into their need now. The remainder of his contract is what's holding this back, right? And on top of that, you've got other pieces that are in play, like Vinny Trocheck. He's a younger version, perhaps. What are the assets required for that? And on top of all of that, I mean, there are players that we don't even know are in play that maybe aren't in play as we're having this conversation. Maybe that changes by Tuesday or Wednesday.
That's what I was curious about because coming out of the Olympic break,
yeah,
some teams are going to go, okay, well, it's going to happen fast, but we got to make a decision. Are we in this? Are we getting out of this? Or has anything happened? I know the Leafs lost. Is there any other teams that over the last 3 days have decided, we're in or we're out?
Yeah. No, not beyond those that we've already speculated on. Like, I mean, St. Louis obviously is in more now than they've been in a long, long time. I talked about this regionally last night. I wasn't convinced that Robbie Thomas was going to get traded. As of last night, I think that it's more likely he gets traded based on the interest in him, right? Utah guys among the teams that are pretty eager for Robbie Thomas. So that is just an acknowledgement of Doug Armstrong going, all right, well, I know what I have to do now, and I want to clean up the mess that this is before Alex Dean takes over. Beyond that, I mean, again, we've been circling the wagons in Nashville for weeks, but Steven Stamkos is having a renaissance run here, and has been for the last several games. Ryan O'Reilly is a big part of that team. I mean, do they blow things up in Nashville for what they think is the betterment of their future? Well, they look pretty good right now, right?
Close.
And they're right on that cusp of a playoff spot. As much as ownership buys into the need to tinker with the roster. And of course, you always have to project for next year, the year after that. You know what matters is the millions of dollars in playoff revenue. That also matters to owners, especially. So, if we're willing to take ROR and Stamkos, maybe Marchessault, I think they'd like to trade him, but he's been on the block all year, basically. If you take those pieces out of play, then it comes back to Calgary because if Vinny Trocheck gets the best offer, and maybe that's to the Minnesota Wild, all right, Colorado, the teams that are interested in Naz are going, okay, well, he's off the market, so we'd better pony up and pay what Conroy needs to make this deal happen.
Do you have a hand to handicap? Because everybody's got their trade boards and lists, and they've got Ryan O'Reilly at the top and Kadri third and Kadri's first. Do you have a kind of a handicap? Everyone's kind of, I have to admit, I didn't realize how good a year Ryan O'Reilly was having. He's got 21 goals.
Yeah.
Playing the way he plays. Yeah.
He's got the best cap hit and just one more season at that cap hit. Just turned 35, so he's kind of in the middle of the pack. I guess just likelihood, is that possible to even do a likelihood of which of those three, or if all those three go?
No, I don't think all three go. Again, I'd be really surprised if Nashville just cuts bait. That doesn't make a whole lot. Well, like, you can do that in the summer, can't you? When
it depends on what you're getting back. Yeah.
Well, and they're 2 points out, fellas, right? So Seattle's sinking like a stone. I don't see Nashville selling if they're in a playoff spot. Like, no way.
And keep in mind, fellas, Kadri's different. Like, he's not being a bad teammate, because he's not that. That's not in his character. He's not trying to stick it to the Calgary Flames by no means. He wants what's best for Calgary, but he also looks at his birth certificate and recognizes, all right, well, I got to try and chase the Stanley Cup here. I'm running out of time. So it's different. If Nazem Kadri had 1 year remaining on his contract, I think he'd be gone by now. And I would put him higher on that list of those three guys than where I'm positioning him right now. if we're assuming, and I think it's a large assumption, again, that ROR is in the conversation, then he's probably 1 or 2. Trocheck, because he's younger, probably 2, and then Kadri for me would be number 3, but that can change pretty quickly. Justifiably, if Ryan O'Reilly, who does not want to leave Nashville, isn't in play and probably shouldn't be, all right, well, then your top 2 centers right now, I think, would be Trocheck and Kadri.
How does Rob Thomas fit into all this? It's obviously a different pile because he's younger and there's a ton of term left, and the acquisition cost would be way different than a guy in his 30s with a year or 2 left. But what do you see happening here? Because we've heard that Armstrong wants to do stuff. No one's unmovable. Oh, but the prices are really high and nothing's really happened.
Yeah. Well, the price is going to remain high in Robert Thomas, because he's a decent young player. He is, right? And so I mentioned Utah earlier, there are several teams that are in that conversation, but this would be Bill Armstrong trying to swing for the fence a little bit, working with his old buddy, Doug Armstrong, to try and give Utah a boost, because I wouldn't call it desperate, but there is a strong appetite in Utah, certainly with the owner, to make the playoffs. Let's make that splash. Let's get going. So I think that Bill Armstrong is highly motivated and has the assets and the pool of prospects and the package I think he could put together that would make sense for the St. Louis Blues to consider trading Robert Thomas. Beyond that, in St. Louis, I talked about this a bit on Insider Trading. I mean, you're kind of looking at the usual suspects. There's activity around Justin Falk. Well, why? He's a veteran defenseman. He's a right shot D-man. And if you're Detroit and you're sitting there and you're twisting and you're waiting on Tyler Myers to finally say, no, I'm not coming to Detroit. All right, well, you've got to cut bait and you've got to shift. And when you look at the right side, you're looking at Justin Falk and you're looking at Ristolainen. Really, I think that they would have interest in Mackenzie Weegar, but my sources say that they don't get the feeling that Calgary is keen on moving Weegar. They don't. Well, that can change, but there's a St. Louis spin on it, and then you've got Braden Shen. Not a lot of activity around Jordan Bennington. There's several pieces in play out of St. Louis.
So can you get us the Cole's notes on what happened with that Tyler Myers situation? Because we saw he was healthy ahead of their game against Winnipeg 2 nights ago. And you're like, okay, a trade's coming, except the trade hasn't come and there's a no trade list involved.
Yeah. So my understanding is that, Detroit and Vancouver effectively made a deal, but that deal was pending Tyler Myers accepting the trade and waiving his no trade clause. And maybe it's family reasons. I can't think of anything else it would be, because when I watch the Detroit Red Wings, I see a pretty good hockey club. And a team that could make some noise in the playoffs. But I always side with a player when it comes to these things, because the player negotiates that trade protection in good faith, right? And just because a trade deadline's looming doesn't mean that you can be bullied into a decision that isn't in the best interest of your family. And that's always going to be a priority for all of us, right? So it's pretty clear that Myers either doesn't see the fit or it's not the right opportunity. So he says, okay, well, I'm going to need some time to digest. He could still come back. As of this morning, my Detroit sources are saying they're still waiting. And they're still waiting. So, at some point today, maybe tomorrow, he could say, okay, there are other teams that are interested in Tyler Myers. I think at Dallas, problem Dallas has and other cap teams have, Myers has 1 more year remaining. Okay. That's, if he was a rental player, I think that the market would be even that much stronger for Tyler Myers. But if you're Dallas, and you're rumored to be interested in everybody. I mean, everybody wants to go to Dallas. They're, apparently they're adding 5 players between now and next Friday. But they've got Jason Robertson, who's up and needs a contract extension. That is going to be a hefty ticket, deservedly so. They've got Maverick Bork, who they've got to deal with. So, it's not like Dallas has endless cap space, even though they've got Tyler Seguin's money probably to work with. So I think JP Barry, who represents Tyler Myers, is making sure his client recognizes what the limitations are in the field of teams that are actually in play here in terms of a trade. And I believe this is true. I was told from a Vancouver source that a 2nd round pick is what was the deal, a second for Tyler Myers, and that sounds like decent value for a player of where he's at in this stage of his career.
Why? Two things. What else is going out east? Because we talk about Nashville, Seattle, Utah, St. Louis, Calgary, Vancouver. Florida's at a tough spot.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you about Carolina. I mean, they're tops in the Metro, tied for tops in the East. Yeah. We were running down teams. We were kind of looking at the Bet365 odds. Like, who do you think?
Yeah.
Didn't really land on Carolina. Between the owner's desire to win, but he's also seemingly very frugal. Like, it's hard to figure out where a year ago they make a blockbuster trade. It didn't work out. Has that taken away some of the appetite to go big game hunting, or because at some point the Hurricanes, they seem like they're that
got to
close.
break through.
Yeah, I agree. They've got to break through, and I applaud Tom Dundon. And now Eric Tulsky is the general manager, because you're right, they're always in it. And is it a team or a destination of choice? Yeah, I think that's fair on both fronts. I mean, you look at the former players who played for the Hurricanes who still live in that area, right? I mean, it's a nice spot, and you've got an opportunity to contend for a Stanley Cup, but they haven't quite gotten there yet. So to answer your question, yeah, I think that they're still swirling around some pivotal pieces here. I think Carolina is one of the teams that re-engaged with Vancouver on Elias Pettersson. I think that would be a complicated deal. Like, obviously Vancouver would have to retain. There'd probably have to be a contract or two that would go from Carolina to the Vancouver Canucks. But I think Rod Brindamore, as an example, would look at what Elias Pettersson is. You know, if you're comfortable with Elias Pettersson coming in and you're thinking he's a 70-point guy and not a 100-point guy, well, then you're probably going to be okay with the game that he's going to play. But I wouldn't say that they're tripping over themselves to get to Pettersson. He's just a name player that, you know, I look at Blake Coleman in Calgary. I'm sure Conroy's phone has been ringing off the hook over the last number of weeks, because he's a utility guy that the best teams in the league could see fitting in with a winning pedigree. So Carolina most definitely is going to do something. They're aiming high now, and maybe they settle back a little bit as we get closer to next Friday.
No, and keep in mind, Rantanen said thanks, but no thanks. And then when they tried to spin Rantanen out, Marner said, nah, no thanks. Because so it's the big game hunting that they've struggled with. Every year they're there. They win the first round. They're at the top of their division. They've got great structure and system, but they're missing the superstar.
Is the goaltending good enough? We talked to Noodles on Wednesday, and he was saying if there's a place, this Bussy, it's been a good story, and Anderson's good when he's healthy, and Kochetkov is out basically for the season. So are they goalie shopping, perhaps?
I haven't heard that, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, there wouldn't be many teams that couldn't perceive the idea of a goalie upgrade in some capacity. But, you know, who are we talking about here? You know, I mentioned a couple of minutes ago that there hasn't been a whole lot of action around Jordan Binnington. Well, if there isn't action, I look at pre-Olympics, I think we could appreciate why there would be no action around Jordan Binnington. I mean, the Blues have been not very good, and Binnington hasn't helped that cause. But he goes to the Olympics in front of a star-studded cast and had to elevate the interest to some degree. But as of yesterday, there wasn't a lot of interest. So, you know, you can conjure up ideas on why teams should consider a goalie upgrade, and Edmonton comes to mind, but easier said than done, because there isn't, at least to my knowledge, there isn't a goalie out there that is going to change things around dramatically.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, because I think it was yesterday, you were on with the boys on Overdrive, and you were saying that maybe there's some scar tissue between Edmonton and St. Louis that would preclude them from doing a Binnington deal. Is that fair?
That's fair. It's accurate. You know, you're probably, you know, if you asked either manager, they'd be like, Dreger's making stuff up. Come on. Like, who's kidding who? You know, the Oilers more or less got caught with their pants down on that one. I mean, they could have signed those two guys. They didn't like the sticker price, and they were looking at their salary cap moving forward and just couldn't make sense of it, you know, with Broberg especially. All right, well, they were vulnerable, and Doug Armstrong and Peter Chiarelli, who is very active in that process, who works for the St. Louis Blues, said, okay, well, here are two guys that are underutilized that we can get at an affordable ticket. So let's do that. So yeah, that's recent history. And I don't think senior management and ownership loved that it happened. So I'm not saying that you can't make deals. Every team in the league deals with one another if the deal is right. So I wouldn't slam the door entirely. I just think that it gets more complicated with those two clubs.
Evander Kane and Dougie Hamilton. What do you see? And those are interesting spots, unique players, unique situations.
Yeah. So I checked on Dougie Hamilton this morning, and I'm told that there's nothing new. And I asked, okay, well, is there a better chance now we're a week outside the deadline that he doesn't get moved? And the response that I got from an impeccable source was, well, you never say never, which I understand is a cliche, but there isn't an appetite yet to push him out. Right. So teams know that Tom Fitzgerald is open to conversation and listening to offers, but there has been nothing yet that moves the needle. Again, we're a week out. Maybe things change. A dozen different agents, especially, have told me that, okay, we might see some stuff here. We've seen a couple of transactions to this point, but they felt like teams needed 2-3 games, maybe get to the weekend. And then maybe there's more definition in the standings between the buyers and the sellers. And maybe the sellers to that point go, okay, well, I've asked for an exorbitant return on player X and I haven't gotten it. So I'm going to need to soften because I don't want to get to Thursday night or Friday morning and then have to get into a chaotic situation. And so maybe that starts to turn a little bit as early as Sunday or Monday. Evander Kane has a market, as we've talked about. Interesting. It seems to be the same teams in on everybody, right? So Dallas is rumored to be in on Evander Kane. Colorado is interested in Evander Kane. Apparently Tampa Bay and Carolina have interest in Evander Kane. And the way it makes sense to me is, again, with an expiring contract, we can see why teams should have interest in Evander Kane. You slot him in your bottom six. The man can still skate. He's aggressive. He can give you some secondary scoring, all of that, and again, in a short period of time. I don't think Dallas is as high on Kane as what is being projected. And I put myself in that category because I do think until recently, the Dallas Stars felt like he could be a decent ad for him. I feel like they've cooled off in the last couple of days. But if you talk to those close to Kane, they felt like he was going to be traded this week. They did. So week's not over. Let's see what happens this weekend.
Is LA in a go for it kind of thing, or what's LA do?
It's two tough losses the last 2 nights.
Well, that one last night was no good. And in fairness, I think Jim Hiller was asked about job security. Was he not post game?
Well, they were chanting "Fire Hiller, fire Hiller."
Good way to get that question asked.
Yeah. Well, and you have Pete DeBoer now twisting out there. He no longer has the distraction of the prep with Team Canada and looking at the Olympics. Sorry, I wouldn't say he's eager to get back on a bench, between now and the end of the season, but he's eager to get back to a bench. And when I think of the LA Kings and the work that Kenny Holland is going to do, I could see DeBoer being a good fit there. But you know what pisses coaches off, including coaches who are on the unemployment line? Speculation around coaches getting fired, because they've all been in that situation. And hey, if Ken Holland and the LA Kings feel like there's a better option to coach that team and get them into the playoffs and then see how they can run in the postseason, then they've got to make that call. They've got to decide that Jim Hiller is no longer the answer. And then you pick up the phone and you go, Pete, hey, we'd like to bring you in because we think that, you're able to get us to the next level. So, but back to the roster for LA. Yeah, I mean, I think they have to be open for business. Losing Kevin Fiala was a kick to the gonads. Who's kidding who? Yeah. How do you replace him? It's going to be difficult, but they have some space to work with because he's not coming back this season.
Yeah.
So Kenny Holland is going to do something. It's not just going to be the splash of adding Artemi Panarin. But again, who is that? Blake Coleman's name has been brought up to me. There's a laundry list of forwards that Ken Holland is likely keeping an eye on. And Evander Kane is one of those as well.
Do you see Rob Thomas as a fit there? Because you got Kopitar moving off to the next phase of his life after the end of the year. The center depth that used to be so good with Deneau gone and now Kopitar leaving, it ain't that anymore.
No. And you know, I think Quentin Byfield's a hell of a hockey player. I do. I think that they believe that, you know, given the patient approach to him, that they'd be able to develop him into, you know, the next Anze Kopitar, and maybe one day, but I don't think that he's close to being that yet. You know, I don't see it. You know, maybe others do. So I could see Robbie Thomas being a fit there. You know, again, it's based on the rate of return and what's coming back. And here's the other little juicy little tidbit for you fellas. Okay. This isn't insider information. I'm not suggesting that one club has talked to the other. Are you watching what's going on in Toronto of late? Like back to
the last 48 hours?
Clunkers. Like they got slapped around by Tampa Bay on Wednesday. Last night's first period might have been the worst period I've seen the Leafs play this year. They were stinky, just terrible. You know, they bounced a little bit. I don't know what Berube must have lit them up in the intermission. You know, they showed a little bit more life in the second and more jam in the third. But more and more in this market, we're playing the what if game. All right, so Brad Treliving is likely going to move some assets, but he would have done that regardless of back-to-back losses and the way they lost. Mm-hmm. He would have done that. He's listening to whatever interest there is in not just his pending unrestricted free agents, but players under contract as well. So the what if game is, what if Toronto can't convince Austin Matthews that they're going to turn this thing around in a real quick fashion? They're going to be better next season than they were this year. I mean, even though they lost Mitch Marner, do we honestly think that they thought that they were going to be where they're at today? Now, the Eastern Conference in general has some influence on that, but still, they didn't think they were taking a step back like this. So what if Matthews, you know, goes to them, you know, he's got 2 years left and says, you know, the way I'm feeling right now, I don't think I'm going to extend here. Like, it doesn't feel like we're on the win. Then that's where, if I'm Kenny Holland and the LA Kings, I'm calling Tree at some point now or in the offseason and saying, I mean, not saying it's going to happen, but if it were, like, I'd like to be in on that. So
a lot of teams in on that.
Well, yeah, and it's probably not going to happen, but he can't be happy either. I mean, you know, you go from a star-studded Team USA and winning gold medal to coming back to Toronto and looking to your left and looking to your right and going, oh boy, not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah. And Damien's just ripping me. I can't catch a break. I can't catch a break. -4 last night for Austin.
Oh, just, eh?
If you're keeping
That's
track.
the plane he came in on?
Yeah. I guess just quickly, I know I think I asked you about it maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, and I know that I just wonder about Jim Nill. In some ways, it's a great team.
Yeah.
They like Carolina, they have to get over the hump, and you look at it, it's going to be Minnesota quite likely in round one, and they're right there neck and neck, and it looks like they're going to that's not great. Then if you get out of that, well, Colorado's still hanging around or waiting, or if the wheels fall off completely for them, you've got them in round one. I mean, you could have a very good team, a legit cup contender, and go out and add and spend more and still lose.
Yeah.
All things being equal in round number one.
Yeah. Last year, right? We had Dallas, Colorado.
What a spot for Jim Nill.
Yeah, and Jim Nill and his owner, Tom Ghilardi, play poker as well as any owner and general manager in the game, full stop. They just do. So the messaging out of Dallas for me this morning was, you know what? We're going to stick to our plan and just add rentals. As I mentioned earlier, you got Jason Robertson who's up, right? They've got to deal with Bork. So yeah, they've got cap issues moving forward. They just don't have the money. I think that they would be a team that would have interest in Nazem Kadri, if not for the contract. Coleman for sure, if not for the contract and all of that. But yeah, they say that they want to be good for a long time, and to be good for a long time, you do have to protect your prospects, and you do have to draft in the first round every once in a while. You can't keep peddling those guys out. But there is an owner in the league that isn't in it for one thing. That's to win a Stanley Cup. So, you know, my information is that Tyler Seguin isn't coming back this year. I think that there's still some uncertainty around that. Like, what if he were to come back in the third round, if they were to make it that far? And now what do you do, right? Because there's a cap moving forward in the playoffs. So you've got to be mindful of that. But those guys are great poker players. I think if the right pieces are available to them and there's a hockey trade that makes sense to better their chances of being a top Stanley Cup contender, I think they find a way. They've done that every year.
Do we got to let him go? Because I got to ask him about my Buffalo Sabres.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Are they in on anything? The Tuck situation going to dictate some of that?
Big win out of the
yeah, it's pretty quiet in Buffalo other than, and this, it's a little confounding. And maybe it's just the more ballsy approach by clubs in general with their pending unrestricted free agents, where they're like, okay, if we use them as an own rental, then that's fine. We're not willing to pay better than $10.5 million. So, the player either softens in his demands, or we'll use them to the playoffs and we'll take our chances. That seems to be the approach that Buffalo wants to take. The agent said status quo to me yesterday when I asked about Tuck and negotiations, but that doesn't mean that Jarmo Kekalainen has to sit on his hands here. They've got a good hockey club. They're a good team, as we know. And I think they're trying to add depth. I'm told they want to add a bottom six forward, and they want to add a depth defenseman. That's normally the standard sort of messaging and search for teams that also want to be mindful of chemistry and not disrupting what they've developed. So I think that's where Buffalo is at this point.
Is anyone's hair blown back when you hear north of 10.5 for Alex Tuck? What would you have guessed a year ago? 8? Like, it's
I don't pay
money.
enough. I mean, I'm a Sabres fan, but I don't pay enough attention specifically. I was always chirping saying, he's not. And then somebody showed me the stats on him. I'm like,
oh, yeah.
It's pretty impressive, actually.
He's got some numbers. Yeah.
So for next week, obviously, we won't have you Friday. All right. Do you have availability earlier in the week?
Oh, I think so.
Slide you in somewhere.
Wow, you really put him on a spot. He's.
I know that's how you got to do it. Dreger,
No.
Cameras are rolling.
Slimy bastard.
Maybe Wednesday. Wednesday might work. A little midweek, or is that Noodles Day? I don't know.
That's Noodles Day, but we can easily give him the boot.
Yeah, we can move him to Tuesday or something like that.
He's going to be here Wednesday. We're going to see him, so he's buying us cheese toast.
Yeah, we're going for steaks.
Oh, good for you guys. Interesting.
Yeah, he had big hopes for Nashville last year. Really saw the Predators as taking a step.
So Rhett made a cheese toast and steak bet.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be good.
Yeah, the things that matter. So are you excited for next Friday? Is it a day that you've come to loathe? There's going to be a lot of action. There's no action.
Nah.
There's...
Once upon a time, I loathed it just because, and I used to make this joke where it would take me 11 months to repair the damage that I did in the month leading up to the trade deadline, because literally you're pestering people endlessly, right? Hockey sources, managers, scouts, every member of hockey operations just gets it. And likewise, the player agents. I used to be, because I used to travel more, and Rhett would appreciate this, although Rhett and I never communicated via text. I'm not going to throw him under the bus. Not one time did we ever do that. But I used to have a pretty good collection of player contacts. We were awesome. And you'd get that text from inside the dressing room. Hey, so-and-so just got traded.
Yes.
But I'm old enough now where that doesn't happen anymore with me. But anyway, used to. So
that speaks to your character, Dregs. Guys trusted you and they liked you, or they wouldn't have done it.
Yeah. All right. So I don't hate it. I don't. And I appreciate the amount of work that the people at TSN put into it, right? Like it's evolved into a spectacle day. And even though it has to be about the trades and the analysis and all that, I mean, come on, we're having fun on the desk and we're mucking around and doing all of that kind of stuff. So it's an event day, and it means a lot to TSN. So it means a lot to me.
How many swaps to the Flames? We put the over under at 1.5.
I'd say over. Yeah, I'd say over. I'd say over. Yeah.
What if
2.5?
2.5.
Yeah.
Over under.
Over under 2.5? Under?
Over.
That feels like the number for me.
I think Pahal's moving.
I think Pahal and Hanley should definitely move over. I love the over.
Nice.
Thanks, Dregs.
Okay, guys, be well. Thank you. We'll talk next week.
Hey, all you dusters. Thanks for watching. Apparently, I'm supposed to tell you to hit like and subscribe. You sound like a real cheese ball.
Cheese